My name is Jamin Goecker. I'm an associate real estate broker in the state of Alaska. My mission, as always, is to help you to build an intentional and significant legacy for yourself and your family by coaching in real estate. And today, we're going to be talking about what's going on in the Eagle River real estate market. Those of you who've been watching for a bit, you do know that Eagle River is kind of a small but mighty real estate market here in the area, where it's not particularly big, but it is very desirable by a lot of people who need to make a commute to Anchorage, i.e. military, people who work in the downtown, midtown area, so on and so forth. Plus, it does have a lot of appeal to it because it kind of has a small town vibe to it. And there's a lot of great activities for families, and you can do all your shopping and everything right there in Eagle River. So for that reason, pretty appealing, and that's why it's so desirable, and that's why the real estate market is what it is. So we'll be jumping into all of that in just a minute. Before we get started though, as always, you know what to do. Give this video a like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and let's jump into it. The first thing I want to look at if we're talking about Eagle River is what's going on in the residential market. And one of the best indicators we can use to gauge on how the market is doing in Eagle River is what's going on in the active inventory. Well, the inventory last year was 31. And this year it's 30, so very small decrease. One thing to keep in mind though is historically around this time of year, it would be about 80 to about 100, 105 properties available on the market. So not a whole lot of change year to year, but we see historically we're about a third of what we usually would see as far as the inventory goes. The next thing I want to know is how many single family properties are actually selling. Well, this time last year it was 21 for the month of January, where we have all the completed information, and this month, January, we just went through 24. So very small increase, but this is significant because even though the inventory was cut down to a third of what it usually is, we do in fact know that about 24 properties is about average of what we would see for the number of properties that are actually selling, which means there's still a pretty high demand for properties in Eagle River, even though the supply is so low. Not surprisingly, we see a diminishing of the active inventory, and then we see kind of an increase or a maintaining of the number of properties that are selling. The average sold price has gone up. By how much? Well, it's gone from about $453,000 this time last year to about $463,000 this year. So we're seeing about a $10,000 increase year over year, just looking for the month of January, which that's all we have at the moment. And this is probably going to be a pretty consistent trend as we move forward. You know, there's, unfortunately, but just the reality of the situation is that supply and demand is going to trump any other metric or thing you might come up with to try to say you know what the market's going to do. And right now, the supply is really low, because everybody refinanced their home or bought a home 2-3 years ago, and most people are not willing to move off of their 3-4% interest rate home anytime soon. Now, if the interest rates suddenly drop, like what they're projected to do, possibly to about the upper 4s, lower 5s around in a couple months here, you know, that could be a game changer, and we might see a lot of people jump into the market. I'm just not sure how much inventory is going to be available for them to look at. Because keep in mind, it was messy a couple of years ago. If we have the same amount of just frenzied demand for properties that are out there that we saw a couple of years ago, and now we have the lower inventory, it could get pretty hairy pretty quickly. And the reason the inventory is so low is just a lot of sellers refinanced or bought a home a couple of years ago, and yeah, they're just not willing to part with it. And the interest rate coming down to about upper 4, lower 5s may or may not be enough to shake those people loose and make them willing to go find something else. Let's switch gears a little bit and look at what's going on in the condo market. Now, in the condo market, we see that it's really not been a huge part of the real estate market here in Eagle River, just because, you know, condos in Alaska, usually they're not a particularly big part of any asset class makeup here in Alaska. In Eagle River, I really suspect that's going to change moving forward because there's only so much space that we have for building, and so the only direction you can go at that point is up. So I think condos are going to become a bigger part of the market. And the first thing that we see as far as condos go in the active inventories, last year we had 1 condo available for the month of January, and this year it's 7. Pretty proportionally pretty big increase there. So if you're looking for condos, you know, this might be your moment. The next thing we see is that the number of properties that have actually sold for condo units for the month of January, this time last year it was 2. This year, it's 3. So very small increase, but again, kind of keeping that historical average, because usually we'd see anywhere from about 2 to about 5. So being able to sell 3, doing pretty good. So not a big surprise there. Last but not least, we see the average sold price went from about $234,000 this time last year to about $265,000 this year for the month of January. Now, just because we have such a small sample size to be looking at and drawing an average from, it's really difficult to say with 100% certainty that if you had a condo this time last year and you sold it this year, you would have made, was it about $32,000 more this year than you would have last year? I don't think that's really what we're seeing, just because the sample size is so small. It really comes down to the specific units that are being sold. And also, I would expect to see that we are in fact seeing a good increase for the average sold price for condos in Eagle River, which, that's kind of a good thing if you're a condo owner, because usually the condo asset class, it doesn't appreciate quickly. The appeal of the condos is that they're predictable, and they're probably not going to have the value drop out the bottom of them anytime soon, and you're going to have a low cost of monthly expenses. So that really is kind of the appeal of the condos, and they usually don't appreciate very quickly. So the fact that they are doing that in Eagle River, great. I don't think any owners are going to be complaining about that. We're going to jump into the multifamily asset class in just a second. Before we do, though, just wanted to make sure you were aware, if you're local or you're going to be local here in the near future and you're looking for a place to kind of plug in and just meet people and get a sense for the social scene here in Alaska, do make sure you go check out the description section down below, where we have a monthly meetup Facebook group. And this is going to be the only place where I talk about these monthly meetups, where we'll go hiking, like at Portage Glacier, hiking at Hatcher's Pass, sledding, photography. We'll do all this stuff to make sure we give you an ability to kind of meet people, talk with people, and get an opportunity to start building that social network. Because I know if you're moving to an area, that can be one of the most daunting things when you're first getting boots on the ground is, okay, how do I make friends? Well, we're doing our best to make sure we help you with that. So that's something that would interest you. Make sure you go follow us down below in that monthly Facebook group. And we hope to see you there. Now, let's go and finish up today's market update looking at the multifamily asset class. Now, the multifamily asset class that we see here in Eagle River, the fact of the matter is that there's not a whole lot of it, just because if you have a multifamily property in Eagle River, you usually don't want to let it go, because it's a lower cap rate, yes, which means you're not going to be getting as high of an ROI, but you're going to have way less of a headache in the process of doing it. So for that reason, most owners of these multifamily properties in Eagle River really don't want to let go of their multifamily properties. They're there, they're just kind of few and far between. And that's kind of what we're seeing in the data here. Usually for this time of year, we'd see anywhere from about 6 to about 10 properties. This year, we're seeing 2, which that's an improvement over last year, because that was a big goose egg at 0. Next, we see that the number of multifamily properties that sold in Eagle River increased from 0 this time last year to 1 this year. So there's still a pretty good demand for multifamily properties here in Eagle River, like I said. Now, with the average sold price here in Eagle River, it really doesn't make a whole lot of sense to look at that, because there weren't any sold properties in Eagle River for multifamily property this time last year in January. The past one that did sell was for about $700,000 in Eagle River. So that really tells me that that's probably like kind of a souped up 4-plex, maybe a 5 or 6-plex. But multifamily properties in Eagle River are going to be more expensive, just because the rents are going to be significantly higher in Eagle River than what they're going to be in most other areas, just because it is such a desirable area. Now, let's go and give you the summary now. If you're a buyer, like I said before, waiting on the fence, if you can avoid it, might be something you should avoid if you possibly can. I understand everyone's situation is different. If you have to wait, for the springtime or whenever the interest rates drop in order to start looking, I totally get that. That being said, though, if you can possibly go sooner, there's something to be said for that, because while everyone else is just rushing the market at the same time, if you could have already had your house purchased, you're just sitting back watching everyone lose their mind and just watching the appreciation on your house go up and up and up, because the interest rates are probably not going to be low enough to make a lot of sellers willing to get off of their homes that they refinance for 2 or some of them were like mid 2s. We'll say about 3 or 4% a couple of years ago. And it's going to be enough to make a lot of the buyers who have been on the fence decide that they want to jump in all of a sudden. So if possible, me personally, I would rather jump in and just get that done and watch everyone else lose their mind. And if I want to, I can refinance and do it that way. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't work out that for you like that. If I possibly could, that's what I would like to do though. If you are a seller, still a strong market, you have to clean, you need to take good photos, and we need to make sure that we do some good marketing so it's not like what we had a couple years ago where you just put a sign in the yard and then just boom, like 10 offers just materialize. Not in the same market that now that we were in then, but it's still a very strong seller's market. Last but not least, my investors, as always, make sure your numbers actually balance out. Make sure that the property that you're looking at, you take a really good hard look and make sure that the market value rents for the property that you're looking at are accurate with what they actually are. And if they're not, then this could actually be a good opportunity for you. A lot of landlords, they'll have tenants and they just love them, don't want to get rid of them, don't want to raise the monthly rents on them, so they keep about the same. And the issue is that once that's gone on for about 4 or 5 years, it's, in my case, when I bought my multifamily property in Eagle River, it was like about $300 like under rented per month per unit. And so you can see how that becomes a really big issue. So you want to make sure that whatever property you're looking at, the rents are at its market value. And if they're not, then this gives you an opportunity to be able to come in and, obviously give the tenants a chance to make that work. And if not, then there's other solutions to that. But yeah, this has been your market update for what's going on in Eagle River. I hope it's been useful. If it has, give this video a like. If you have questions, reach out to me, and we'll see you next time.